Welcome to the Clean Truth, where we like to call bullshit on the status quo. What is up? Welcome back to the Clean Truth. I'm Don. I'm your host, Silver Fox.
Yes, sir.
We got a pretty good show today, man.
I'm
Pretty
freaking
excited.
pumped up.
We have Robbie Kröger from Blood Origins. Say hi, Robbie.
Hi, Robbie.
Love it.
Yeah,
It's going to be good.
I set that one up.
Yeah. Teed it up for you.
Yeah. Robbie, every week, man, when we do these, we kind of go through a little intro deal. We always thank Rain Energy. Brett Bauer at Rain always keeps us pretty hydrated here with energy drinks. So I always like to give a pretty cool shout out to her. She takes really, really good care of us.
Well, tell him to send some this way. I like Rain.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I like Rain. A lot of people in this country, the new flavor that they just came out with called the lychee. I think you guys call it lychee.
We got one in there.
Which one is it?
Yeah, we got it's the orange one right there.
Yeah. So in South Africa, let me give you a little bit of an education.
Yeah, knowledge bomb on us.
I think this entire podcast is going to be a bit of a knowledge bomb. But anyway.
I'm ready.
So in South Africa, when you go to the supermarket, you buy fruit called lychees. And a lychee fruit is this, it's a brown fruit. It's got all sorts of prickles on the outside. And when you open it up, it's got this sweet white flesh and it's got a big brown pip in the middle. That is the flavor of my youth. Like lychees are the thing for me. So when I saw that they had come out with this lychee flavor, I was like, oh man, gotta have some of that.
Yeah.
They're good, man. I can't drink a whole one. They really jack me up. So Scott and I will usually go halvesies on one, and then we'll dilute it a little bit. But I like them a little bit better than the bangs. The bangs are just, I don't know. They're good, but they're just, I like the Rains better. I don't know.
Now we will always think of Robbie when we see the lychee flavor.
Yeah, for sure.
Say it lychee. Say it properly, because the majority of people
Lychee.
say
Lychee. Love
The weekly ball busting session, we usually bust somebody's balls in here. I got to go after Ben's shirt, man. This shirt looks like he's.
So we will quickly find out where Robbie lives and where he resides and calls home. But I have a Ole Miss polo shirt on today. A little hottie toddy for my Mississippi boy here on the
That's why you
on the
wore it today,
podcast.
wasn't it?
Correct.
See,
very nice.
worked
to
out
do
Very
it.
well.
nice.
That worked out.
Had to
well.
do
I
it.
appreciate that. You should have introduced yourself as the Silver Fox this weekend. That would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
That's the internal corporate name for sure.
We need to make that mainstream.
Switch the handle.
You need a shirt that says Silver Fox.
That'd be cool.
All right. The topic of today is blood origins. And I'm going to let Robbie, I'm going to let you explain this because you did it so fantastic to me and Ben. And I kind of knew what it was going into Winter Strong, but I didn't realize exactly what it was until meeting you over the weekend at Winter Strong and then hearing you talk about it to the group. And I just wanted to share it on the podcast because I think what you guys do is fucking fantastic. I think it's phenomenal. It kind of hit home for me a little bit, just for reasons that I'll talk about later that aren't really that important. But in hearing what you guys do, it kind of hit home for me a little bit. So introduce Blood Origins and just kind of
Sure.
run with it, man.
Sure. I'll use you as an intro in. What you just said is really why we do what we do at Blood Origins. When you said my story on how it connects to me doesn't really matter, I would argue that it matters the most, because what you are about to tell us is what all hunters in our typical hunting community has shied away from for so long. Our hunting community is in a place today because of 35 years of focusing on this thing called the kill. And hunting inherently kills things. Okay. It's almost like an antithesis statement. We know we kill things. So why do we have to overemphasize the fact that we kill things? For the vast majority of us, we hunt for so many different reasons. And it's the heart of why we hunt, the why behind why we hunt, the truth of what hunting does for people, what hunting does mentally, spiritually, physically for people, what hunting does for communities around the world, from Pakistan to Zambia to Mozambique to Argentina to New Zealand to our backyards here in the US, to what it does for wildlife conservation all over the planet. We'll talk about multiple examples here in the US, New Zealand, Mozambique, Namibia, Spain, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, or not Uzbekistan, they don't hunt there, Kazakhstan. It's all because of hunting. And unfortunately, the perception that hunting and hunters have is unfortunately a product of ourselves and our industry. And Blood Origins has set a path forward to change perceptions. And so really what Blood Origins is a proactive PR campaign that has a mission statement that is to convey the truth around hunting. Simple as that.
I love it. I was locked in there, man. You caught me off guard, which I think is great. I mean, it fits the tagline of this podcast, and I've said it before. You know, we use the slogan that we like to call bullshit on the status quo, and we don't always do that on the show. There's a lot of episodes where we don't go out of our way to do this, but I think this specific one is perfect, and yeah, I think it hits the nail right on the head. So, what exactly inspired you to start this? Where did it come from? How did it get started?
So I come from, and a lot of people's stories are going to resonate with what I'm about to say. And the story behind why someone hunts is incredibly powerful. I hunt because it's part of who I am. I think a lot of people hunt because it was passed down to them through traditions and heritage. It could have happened to me. Unfortunately, it didn't. My grandfather, as he explained to me, hunted the two greatest hunting paradises that this world had to offer. In the 20s and 30s, he hunted pheasants in Tibet. He hunted the Chinese northern Mongolia steppe. He hunted Siberia. And then in the 50s, he immigrated to Africa and lived the heyday of Africa, the Africa that everyone speaks about, learns about, reads about, the Hemingway Africa. My grandfather lived it, and my father was a camp boy in those times. And so, you know, they did it all. My grandfather hunted elephants and lions and leopards. He actually never hunted lions. I'll take that back, because his name was Leo. And my oldest boy is named Leo. So he always said he would never kill his namesake. And so I have hunting buried in my blood. It's part of my family. I never got to do it. And so when I came to the States in 2003 to do a PhD at Ole Miss,
Howdy toddy.
I started learning how to hunt, and I was taught how to hunt like a classic Mississippi country redneck would. I was given a lawn chair, stuck under a cedar tree with a gun, and said, if something comes by, shoot it.
Where was
And
that in Mississippi?
Where was that?
Yeah, was that down south?
No, it was in Oxford, just outside Oxford, 6 miles outside Oxford, Mississippi.
Nice.
And I had to rapidly evolve my thought pattern, my thought process of how I needed to become a hunter, because I wasn't 8 years old. I was 26 years old. And soon I got married. Soon I had 2 young boys on my hands. And I was like, whoa, you know, and I had in that interim become an American citizen. And to me, this understanding of what I had, the privilege of walking on ground that belongs to me, belongs to you, Don, belongs to you, Ben, that with a loaded gun that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, and have the freedoms to hunt things that I have the opportunity to hunt, wasn't lost on me. And so I started having to explore. I wanted to explore this thing of like, okay, how do I teach my boys, not practically how to hunt, but how do I teach my boys to respect this thing that they have? Because I know I come from a place where I didn't have it. And so I started looking in the outdoor space for these people that were preaching this message of, this is our heart, this is why we do it, this is why we respect it, this is why we're so grateful. And I couldn't find it. I could find bits and bobs of it, but I couldn't find someone that was just solely focused on it and also not focused on themselves. And so I decided to build it. And so we built Blood Origins to initially very sort of selfishly from my perspective, because I wanted to talk with people and film people. And I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not a cinematographer. I'm a scientist. But I have a vision for what I wanted to see and what I wanted it to look like. And I wanted to speak with people and capture almost the essence of why they do what they do, why they hunt. And that's what it started as. And over 4 years, it has morphed into this broader why, what, who of hunting and hunters, tied to, as you say, the bullshit status quo that hunters are just killers, the bullshit status quo that hunters do nothing for wildlife conservation, the bullshit status quo that nobody benefits from hunting. There no dollars hit the ground. It all gets put into corrupt officials' pockets. That's bullshit. And so I don't say it that way. I only say it because this is the style of this podcast.
Sure.
But I purposely, we take a very even-keeled rhetoric to this perception that people have. Today, Don, I'll give you an example today. I got pulled in, and this is what happens regularly now. I get tagged into a trophy hunting post. Some guy in California, he's got a massive following, 50,000 people follow him. He posted a picture of a woman with a dead leopard in her hands today. How atrocious, how da-da-da-da-da. And then there was all these people. Somebody tagged me in there, and I was like, all right, let's go to work. And even-keeled rhetoric, this is what hunting is doing. Hunting is not poaching. Hunting and poaching, you saying hunting is poaching is the same as you saying shopping is shoplifting. It's the same thing. It's not the same thing. And it's just almost it's an education by apologetic narrative, if I want to call it that. It's almost, you're not calling them anything. You're just saying, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. But what if I told you this? Or you're like, we need to ban hunting. I'm like, okay, honest question. What would you replace it with that would sustain and increase wildlife populations and help communities at the same time? And more often than not, you get crickets back. And so this guy, he went back and forth with me, and I just slid into his DMs and I said, you want a podcast? And on the podcast, you ask me anything you want about hunting, and I will answer it. And I can guarantee you by the end of that podcast, the seeds will have been sowed of his perception of what hunting and hunters are would have changed, because he's never interacted with a hunter. He's never interacted and sat down and talked the truth from someone. All he's heard is this garbage coming through social media and the typical anti-hunting channels that he just opens his mouth and he absorbs. Sorry, I got on a bit of a soapbox.
No,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
You mentioned hunting versus poaching, and I have that on my notes here. And I think that's it. We're getting a little out of order, but that's okay. So, talk for there's a lot of people that listen to this that are not connected to the hunting world. There's a lot of them that are, but a lot of them that aren't. And
Perfect.
I think I put that on there because explaining the difference between the two, and a lot of people don't know. And I think the example that you used is perfect. You know, a lot of people that don't hunt, they see pictures of trophy game and these wild exotic animals, and I think, you know, same thing. They get a negative perception about it. So, how do you approach somebody? Like, how do you explain the difference between the two? Basically, like, I mean, it's pretty obvious to me. I know, but for somebody that doesn't know, how do you explain that?
That killing Bambi is
Realistically,
not a bad
you know what I
thing
mean?
all the time.
Yeah, so I will say this. Let's use exactly what the silver fox just said. Hunting is killing Bambi. No, hunters don't kill Bambi. Poachers kill Bambi.
Correct.
Why? Because Bambi is young. Bambi is immature. Bambi is the future of that wildlife population. Hunters do not kill young animals. So the difference between hunting and poaching, as I use the analogy, it's like comparing shopping and shoplifting. Okay, they're completely different things that have different legal constructs, or not even legal constructs around them. Hunting is legal. Poaching is illegal. Okay. Hunting operates under legal regulations by state governments, by federal governments, by regional authorities. There are laws that everyone has to abide by. Poachers, there is no law that they abide by. Hunting is selective, and in some cases extremely selective in the animals that it takes. So what do I mean by that? When we go hunting, we typically are looking for the most mature male species of that wildlife that we are chasing. The reason why is that by taking that animal out of the population, you do not have any detrimental effects on the population to grow. And here's something that is the counterintuitive part of hunting, is that people don't understand that when you take an individual out of the population, you actually have an opportunity to grow that population more, reducing competition, reducing unwanted death. Like, for instance, in rhinos, old cantankerous rhinos tend to kill younger rhinos and females because they're frustrated. By taking that animal out of the population, you've actually saved 6 to 8 rhinos that would then increase the population later. So bighorn sheep, when you go hunting sheep, when I say extremely selective, you have to only kill a certain age class, and that's where you have to be extremely selective. Poaching, indiscriminate. Doesn't matter, male, female, old, young, doesn't matter. We're taking it out. Hunting, yes, we kill, but when we kill, we do it in probably the most humane way that you could possibly do that exercise or that activity. Okay. And when I say that, I say, look at just the amount of practice that goes into someone going out and harvesting or killing an animal by using a rifle or using a bow. They don't just go willy-nilly. They've put hours and money behind all the ammunition and whatnots because they want to do it as ethically and as humanely as possible. They do it by stalking. They do it by getting as close as they possibly can. They watch the animal, make sure it's not nervous, make sure it's not going to jump anything. Poachers typically run snares and they run trap lines where animals are snared and caught and could be there for days on end, not being checked on. So an excruciating death that these individuals put these animals through. And they don't care. There's no, and that's the sort of one of the last things I'll say. There is an element of moral fiber tied between a hunter and a poacher. Hunters care about wildlife. It may not seem that way, but we do because we want more wildlife on the landscape. Hunters care, poachers don't, because poachers are always about the bottom line.
Quick question while you're talking about like the poaching side of things. Like, I think a lot of people would think poaching is only happens in Africa or South Africa when they hear that word. But like, help them understand like that there's poaching happening on, United States soil and the all continental 48 United States and everything as well.
Yeah, there's, spotlighting happens all over the United States. That's poaching. And a lot of the times the people here, and the difference, I'll say this, the difference between Africa and America is this. There's going to be places in Africa where people are quote unquote poaching. And I say quote unquote because they're feeding their families. Okay. They are in need of protein. And I can't fault someone for that. That's where hunting benefits people, because in that scenario, a hunting outfit would have provided that individual a job, would have provided money, would have provided schooling, medical, whatnot. Are there cases of that in the United States? Probably, but very rare, right? Those guys that are spotlighting deer out of season, trying to get that big buck. They're just after the rack and the antlers and whatnots. The majority of the poachers are people that just shoot off the roads, right? And then they chop the head off of that animal and leave all of the meats, right? We've got wanton waste laws in America. A lot of people don't know that for the majority of all states, there are wanton waste laws that a hunter has to take all the meat with him. And so when you hear about this perception, again, challenging the status quo, that all you do is chop off the head and leave everything behind, that never happens.
Very
It
rarely.
never happens in the US. It never happens in Africa through the legal mechanism of hunting. It's only poachers that do that.
Yep.
Or people that have absolutely no moral fabric to the care and the ethos of wildlife conservation.
I agree.
No doubt.
I'll talk about why this hit home for me so well, because I think it segues into something that you just mentioned on educating people with this stuff. And when I heard Jamie, and I cannot remember the other guy's name that was at Winter Strong, the hunter
Baker?
Baker was one, the Hunter Recruitment Project, and they talked about their mission with that. And after hearing them and then hearing you talk about this, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, I just recently bought a farm about 60 acres north of here. I think we were having a conversation about this the other night. And I grew up in southern Illinois, which is like the whitetail capital of the world. And when I was there growing up, late teens, early 20s, I hunted for a little while, but it was never anything that was like a really big passion for me. I never really, I guess, respected it. I kind of took it for granted. And, a lot of my buddies, country kids, they hunted, this, that, and the other thing. And it was just never anything that kind of like sat in my gut as a big passion. And now I'm moving out here and going through life the way that I did and going down the road that I did and kind of reconnecting with that, it really like hit home for me that night. Sitting there listening to Jamie, because I said, I didn't just buy this farm just to go out and slaughter deer. You know what I mean? It was more of a inner thing for me where I could disconnect from the world. I could disconnect from my stress levels. I could go sit in a deer stand for 4 days and not kill a thing. I don't even have to take a gun. You know what I mean? It was more of an inner Zen thing for me. But I think the Hunter Recruitment Project and what you guys are educating people on here is just, I don't know. I can't, I'm getting so tongue-tied because I can't really describe how I feel about it inside. But it felt really good to hear what you guys were talking about the other night.
No, you're absolutely nailing it on the head, Don. A lot of people, you bought that farm for so many other reasons than taking wildlife.
Exactly.
That's going to be the cherry on the sundae that you've already eaten, right? The fact that you can work the land and invest in the land and see it change and grow is part of, and as you said, it's an escape. It's a spiritual escape. It's a physical escape. There's so many elements to why we hunt, which is why. Sorry, the savages are going to start arriving. But there's so many reasons why we do it, and we've forgotten about it. So that's why we do what we do every day. Yeah.
I think the why is what you're saying multiple times, and here at Clean Eats, we talk about our why a lot, and we meet a lot of franchisees and prospective franchisees that come in to us all the time and say, X, Y, and Z, this is what I'm thinking. But one thing that Don always wants to get out of them and pull out of them is like, well, why do you want to choose Clean Eats and not the, muffler shop? Like what makes us different? Like, I want you to tell me. And I think that's the same thing that you're pulling out of people that have been lifelong hunters is tell me the real story. And I think like when we saw the video of Bert, like I've known Bert since like 2019, like that gave me like chills, like seeing that. And I'm about to have a baby boy. So seeing his kids run around the farm, and then I'm thinking like the fun that Don and I have already had at the farm. And shoot, we've sat in the deer stand 3 times together this year, didn't shoot a single thing, walked down, had a great time. I'm thinking, man, I would love my son to experience this with myself and at Don's farm and everything like that, and grow up and understand why more so than anything else.
So you both have just articulated something without you realizing it. And it's this. One of the biggest perceptions, again, we'll keep using this, one of the biggest status quos out there is hunters are just killers. Okay.
Yep.
You both have just made a statement that is contrary to that. Okay. What do you think the percentage? And here's where things get really cool. You take the largest hunting population in the world, America. Okay, 11 million hunters. And you take the largest wildlife resource in the world, white-tailed deer, 30 million. If hunters were killers, surely the data would back up that statement.
The deer
What do
would
you
be
think the
extinct already.
percentage? What do you think the percentage is of people that kill, harvest, take a deer every year that have a hunting license?
Shoot, is it 10% or? I gotta imagine it's pretty low.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to start.
It's between 42 and 48%.
So less than half.
Less than half of all hunters kill one animal.
Crazy.
Okay? In Canada, 21 to 36% of all hunters kill one animal. You know how many in Canada kill a second animal?
Even less.
Well, of course it's less, Ben. Come on.
5%.
That's that hotty-toddy education there. Less than 1%.
Jeez.
Okay, so now, are hunters killers? It's impossible.
Right.
The data has just proven you impossible. So we must be doing it for another reason. We must be doing it for something else.
So talk about the Blood Origin Supporter Program and the conservation for community projects. You know, I mean, how much education are these programs for education to try to change this narrative? I mean, obviously they are. I know that, but talk about these two things for a minute.
So the supporters program is very simple. We at Blood Origins how do I say this? We have built a brand that is probably has the most integrity and the most authenticity in the outdoor / hunting industry, if you want to call us in the industry. Okay. And the reason is that I made a decision from the get-go that I wasn't going to take any money from anyone. It killed my bank account. It killed my savings account. But it meant that I didn't belong to anyone, Don. I didn't belong to any camo company or any bullet company or any gun company. And so I represent, Blood Origins was built for everyone. It was built for all camo companies, all gun companies, all bullet companies. So I couldn't belong to anyone. And so our supporters program, now that we're a nonprofit, we decided we wanted to stay outside the box in terms of how we fundraise. And we wanted to make the level of entry extremely low. And we wanted to figure out a way that we could just say thank you to people for getting behind us. So for the cost of a cup of coffee a month, $3, $4, $5, you support us. You see what we do day in and day out, and you can just see that's where your money's going, is the content production of the message. Nobody's taking a salary out of this project. It's just all about pushing content. And because you gave $3, $4, $5 a month, I want to thank you. And we have a smorgasbord of brands that want to thank you too. So every month you'll be eligible, as long as you're giving your $3, $4, $5 a month, you will be eligible for amazing prizes, essentially.
I saw
seasonings,
some of them. Yeah, they're
knives, some really cool knives. This February, for instance, there's a pig hunt that someone's going to win. And that pig hunt is for 3 people, 5-star lodging for 3 days, hunt with Brandon Lilly, hunt with us. And somebody will win it for giving $4 a month.
Pretty sweet.
And so that's what we're doing. And every month there'll be something else. We've got amazing once in a lifetime hunts all over the world. And really, it's just a way for us to give thanks to the people that have gotten behind us. And it's a way for us to create this grassroots crowdfunding campaign to support us. Now, layer on top of that the conservation projects that you just described. We have a unique model in that we implement direct conservation projects. There's no middleman. We find the project, we will fundraise for the project, we will execute the project, and then we will storytell the crap out of it. So for instance, last year we funded 5 projects right out the gate. We funded a documentary in New Zealand where we hired helicopter, we flew 4 non-hunters into the backcountry for them to see tahr for the first time because there was this massive turmoil issue around tahr. Amazing documentary. It's called, just left me. A Difficult Treasure. A Difficult Treasure is what we called it. We funded the building of a soccer field in the middle of rural Eastern Cape. We funded it in 4 weeks, and we built it in 4 weeks. And we will release the film of that here this April. We funded the sort of feeding of a primary school in the Eastern Cape of South Africa that was reliant on hunters coming in and hunting, and that game meat actually was processed and pushed into the schools. No hunters, no meat. So we had to try and step up and help them in that way. Raise Them Outdoors, a hunting camp here in the United States. It's just a little different than all the other hunting camps in that they force a mentor to go with the child so that when they come out of camp, the child and the mentor now can bow hunt and now they can shoot, versus the kid coming back home and saying, I want to shoot a bow. And mom and dad are like, well, I don't know what that means. I don't know how to do that. So that's what we do. We've got a couple more projects lined up in 2021. We typically want to do 4 to 6 projects a year. We've got a couple working behind the scenes right now, but we're going to come out with a project here in the next week or 2, we believe, that will just be a real slam dunk here in the United States. So that's what we do. It's just, we build content to showcase who we are, and then we use direct conservation projects to further show what hunters do for people and wildlife.
It's great. I think, where would you send somebody for, I guess, further education? You know what I mean? Like, I'll use myself as a good example, even though I knew it when I started again, but a lot of people don't. And what I mean is, if you are disconnected from hunting or if you're new to hunting, you know, there's a ton of hunter education courses out there, obviously. But past that, so you take the hunter's education course, you're now a licensed hunter, you have a gun. But a lot of people don't understand where to go from there. They don't know, you know, okay, I'm ready to go sit in a deer stand, but now what? You know what I mean? They shoot a deer, then what happens? You know, that kind of stuff is still new to me. I'm still relearning that at 42 years old, even though I've done it a few times. You know what I mean? It's exciting for me, and I'm catching on to it quicker because I have a little bit of a foundation under me, but a lot of people don't have that foundation. So, I mean, where would you send somebody to do that? I think that's what that hunter recruitment project is great for. That's why I like it so much, is because not only are they recruiting new people, but they also give them the tools that they need after they have been reintroduced or introduced for the first time.
Gosh, man, you know, Google University is a wonderful thing. All right. There's so much content on YouTube from everything you want. You could just type it in, like, how do I flesh a skin? How do I clean a skull? How do I drag a deer out of the woods? I can guarantee you there's video content associated with it that you can watch and learn. It's, you know, I would say that would be somewhere you need to go. Number 2, don't be afraid to ask your local game and fish, right? Your local game and fish, the state biologists, the game wardens, all these guys are there to help you interact with the resource. And so they want to help you. It's just they've got a moniker like the game warden. Like, nobody, you know, That's the game warden. You don't
Everybody
wanna
got a
talk
little
to the game
scared this
warden.
weekend when they saw him walking around.
Yeah, and Terrence is just, he wants to help you. He
Yeah.
wants to
He was awesome.
Yeah.
He was good.
he wants to give you knowledge. He wants to tell you, where to go hunt. He'll tell you. You just have to ask. And I think social media today has allowed us to be a little bit more brazen in reaching out and cold calling people. So I wouldn't be afraid cold calling people even through social media. Reaching out and just saying, hey, can you help me, point me in the right direction for this or that.
I think
Be surprised.
there's a lot of guys now that are actually teaching courses on this, which I think is cool too. A lot of guys are teaching, especially these contracted guys are teaching these marksmanship classes and these gun courses, but they're also avid hunters. So what they'll do is they'll expand upon that and they'll take them out and show them how to hunt and then show them how to process the meat and all that stuff. I think it's cool.
Oh, definitely.
But you guys also have a podcast. If you want to talk about that for a minute, I've listened to a few of them, man. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's different as you would have expected, right?
Sure.
We don't like to sit inside the box in the typical interview box, but rather, we want some hard hitting, iron sharpening iron type conversations with people. I think that one of the things that is lacking in society today is the ability to have amicable discussions where you can push the envelope a little bit and the individual doesn't feel like you're attacking them. I'm sure that's going to happen to me. It hasn't happened yet. Like that guy, I'm going to podcast with that guy next Wednesday, and who knows what he's going to ask me, right? But you just approach it very, matter of factly, and don't get upset. And if he gets upset, you can almost say, "Why are you getting so upset?"
Sure.
Just have those amicable discussions. And so, yeah, our podcast is it's really a reflection of our Instagram feed, in that we have some hard-hitting conversations about legislation that's going down. We speak with non-hunters, we speak with vegans, we speak with people that are high up in the outdoor industry. And then we have, some of the episodes that we've done in the past. So the full complement. So Bert Soren, for instance. Bert Soren, as you heard, was a 7-minute piece, but we spoke with Bert for 30 minutes. So people want to hear all 30 minutes of what Bert had to say. And so we will release that as a podcast too.
Nice. You guys have a YouTube channel, obviously, too. That's where the movies are. And if you haven't seen one of these movies are incredible. Like we've mentioned Bert's story a few times. Has that been released yet? Should I be talking?
No, May. It'll be probably May that we'll release it.
Love it.
But yeah, there's lots of journeys and lots of stories. Yeah.
There's some on there that I've watched since Winterstrong, since we've gotten back, and they'll reach out and punch you in the mouth.
For sure.
They will get a reaction out of you quickly. They're really good.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point.
So, Robbie, long-term goal with Blood Origins. I mean, I understand the mission and everything, but is there a long-term goal? Do you have a metric thing that you're trying to measure way out there years from now? Where do you want to see Blood Origins go? Or is it a continuous thing that doesn't have a metric to use?
I'd like Blood Origins to be, I think we're getting close to it. We're, the tip of the spear when it comes to pushing this new narrative or a different narrative around who we are as hunters. Our global fingerprint is expanding all the time. And I think in 5 years' time, if someone has an issue with hunting, let's say this, if someone comes across something that's against hunting, the first thing that comes into their brain is, I need to put this in front of Blood Origins.
Nice.
That's our goal. It has really no metric tied to it. It's more of a recognition, and I'm constantly blown away, right? The fact that both of you, I met you this weekend, didn't know you from a bar of soap, and you had both heard of Blood Origins. It's that kind of stuff that constantly humbles me. And here's the key, is that I'll have a conversation like I had with a couple of people this weekend, that they won't know who I am. Very purposely so. But when I say I founded Blood Origins, they're like, oh, I've heard of Blood Origins. That's the difference, right? You don't need to know me.
We share
I
in that
may-
mentality.
Yeah, you don't need to know me. I'm the guy who's pushing the stone, and I will push that stone every single day. And if I need to be out there a little bit more, like we've started doing with our talking heads on a Sunday, so that you get to know a face tied to the organization, okay, so be it. But this isn't about me. This is about you, Don, you, Ben, everyone listening to this podcast that are hunters that want to put a message out into the non-hunting majority. And I think that's the one point I don't think we've covered, is that Blood Origins was not built for hunters. Though hunters look at it, hunters see it, hunters resonate with it, they take something away from it, they learn how to speak, they learn how to interact, they learn how to communicate about what hunting means to them. Blood Origins was built for the non-hunting majority. So the majority of maybe the people listening to this podcast, it was built for you so that you can go and you can go to a place that you can be certain that you're going to get objective truth. We will let you know when it's personal truth. It'll never be political truth. It'll always either be, for the majority, objective truth, and maybe a little bit of personal truth given what me or others around us have experienced on the ground. That's where we want to go.
Looking forward to it.
It's like the third time I've been so locked in when he stopped. I'm like, I'm just locked in, man.
It's his voice. His voice will do that to you.
Well, you mentioned
Voice doesn't hurt.
Yeah. You mentioned this weekend. Let's talk about that for a minute. So Ben and I met you this past weekend, and guys, Ben and I went to Winter Strong 3 this past weekend in South Carolina. It's an event that Sorinex puts on every year. This is the third year they've done it now, and it's where they kind of mix the outdoor world with the strength and conditioning world and the world of strength. And I wasn't able to go last year. Ben was able to go. This was the first year that I was able to go. And once again, man, this is why I'm so deep rooted into that culture of Sorinex, is because every time I go to one of those events, I come back and it takes me like 3 days to process everything that I learned, everything that I saw, everything that I took in, the people that I met. And this one was no different. I still can't even voice, everything that happened. I know that I've met amazing humans like Robbie and a few other ones. And some of the thing that I like the most about it is, I think I put this in a post on social media the other day, is when you go to an event like that, it's a level playing field in terms of human beings. You know what I mean? Like, net worth isn't important. The size of your company is not important. None of that matters. You're a human being, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know the word I'm looking for. I don't have a word for it, but you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
And that was no different this weekend. And I had the privilege to stand next to. We were grateful enough to stand next to people that I didn't even realize at the time who I was actually standing next to. You know what I mean? I was locked into conversations, and I was having conversations with people, and then I would walk away, and somebody would go, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, I don't know. And then they would tell me, and I'm like, okay, like it really hit. I think that was, and I have, I had a question here, what was your best takeaway? And I think that was mine.
Yep.
The best takeaway that I took away from that is that group of people. And when you get people that are that like-minded, that just want to help each other out and help educate people on outdoors, period, I don't even have a word to describe it, really.
I'll tell you what flabbergasted me, and it only hit home when I got home and I saw the picture. So when I was podcasting with Terrence, there was a cameraman that came around us. And I asked him, I said, "Did you just show up are you a content producer?" He says, "No, I'm here for Kyle." He said, "Kyle Carpenter." And I was like, okay, the name at the time when he said it didn't like sink in. And I saw the guy, like I saw Kyle. I don't think I introduced myself to him because he came in late, I believe. Anyway, that was Kyle Carpenter.
Yep.
Medal of Honor recipient Kyle Carpenter.
He was one of the ones that I was just talking about.
Yep.
And I was like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't like this big fanfare. There wasn't this whole, it was just like, as you said, Don, it was just normal people, right? That were all on the same page. You know, it's interesting. I don't like to swear a lot. I'll only swear when appropriate. But Casey from Tacticality said to me, he says, you know what the difference is about all these people that are here? Is that they are, and I need to make a shirt for it, is that they have leveled up gaffs. And I call it gaffs. They have leveled up their give a fucks. Like they wake up and they have taken their this is what I care about to the next level. Every single person there has leveled up their give a fucks.
It's a pretty good
like,
analogy.
whoa.
That's a good way to describe it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I want a T-shirt with like a level, and it just says level up your gaff. No, actually, I want a level with a gaff, like a fishing gaff. And I want to say level up your gaff, and nobody will know what the gaff means unless you've heard it.
I think the like physical fitness part is huge for sore necks and everything like that. But I think the thing that I like sitting back and watching, like at the end of that weekend, is Bert doesn't do the, kind of like competition that we did, like as a competition, like somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. Like it's not about like the winning and losing. I think the best part about like what that kind of caps it all off on at the end of the day is that like we're all in it together. It doesn't matter who's on your team because you're going to continue to learn more and more and more about who was on your team, but like that you competed and did a task together with people that you had no idea who it was. Like we drafted teams like gym class, which is probably illegal to do anymore. Not allowed to pick teams like that in high school. But like after the fact, like we digest so much about our team that we never would have done just a few hours previous, like on that weekend, if we hadn't have done that physical activity together. And I mean, that night that like capped it off, I mean, like you said, we got 60 plus people in a tent in green and tan and black, and everybody's the same playing field. Everybody's having fun. Everybody's getting to know each other, but nobody cares about like, what do you do for a living? Where are you from? Like anything like that. It's just good banter, good talk, good education. I love it. You don't see that very many places at all.
No, not at all. Not anymore. Very rare. Robbie, did you do the competition?
Oh yeah, we came third, buddy.
Did you? Whose team were you on?
I was on we had the Tradbo guy. I was the Tradbo guy.
How was that, by the way? I was
We
blown
killed it.
away that he can
So-
shoot that distance with that thing.
Well, it was a different distance. It was half the distance
Okay.
on a Tradbo. There were green pegs in the ground. But he missed the opening shot 3 times, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a long afternoon." He hit every single target after that, and it was just like we just pounded it, man. It was just like
That's
I was
awesome.
just barking orders. All right, push-ups are next, squats are next. You got the antelope on the left, you got the better buck on the right. It was excellent. I really, really loved it.
Yeah, I love it.
I thought that was a cool part of it that got interweaved. So, what he's talking about is there was a 3D archery range there, and each team had they had to hit this target. Well, he worked in like if you wounded the animal, quote unquote, meaning if you missed the shot where it was supposed to go, the entire team had to run down, chase it, and bring it back. I think there's a little bit more to that than just a missed shot. You know what I mean? It's
For
like
sure.
kind of teaching people that wounding an animal doesn't always kill it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I thought that was kind of cool. Oh, man. Well, Robbie, thank you, man. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to sit here and talk to us and share what you do, share Blood Origins. Where else can people find you and learn about this?
Just simple Blood Origins on all your social media platforms. Type Blood Origins into Google. Will come up probably the entire first page. Blood Origins into YouTube. Pretty simple.
The last thing I want to close this out with, and it was the last thing on my notes here, and I thought it was cool because I think you're going to get guys, and I think you already do, if I remember right from our conversation. You get people that come to you and they want to be showcased by Blood Origins. And the way that you explained that to me the night that we were, the Forge night, that everybody was, Josh did the forging thing. You know, I think I asked you that question. And the way that you explained it, I thought was so kick-ass, and I want you to do it again, if you don't mind. So somebody goes on your YouTube page, and they see this video, and then they come, and they're like, well, Robbie, come do a story on me.
I'm not going to do your story because you're being selfish and that you're thinking about yourself. And I'm not interested in telling a selfish story. If you came to me, though, and you said, I want to introduce you to this individual that I think has the most amazing story, and this is why, now you got my attention, because all of a sudden you've become selfless. And so we get lots, as you can imagine, lots of people coming to us saying, I've got a cool story, come tell my story. We always say no. So, and the way that, you know, in the beginning, we were nobodies. We're still nobodies. It was a matter of someone saying yes to me. I would ask, if you said yes, can I tell you a story? And you said yes, you're in, kind of deal. And so Blood Origins, when you look at how we're structured now, we've got this big DNA, we've got this big family tree that comes out of our logo. And that family tree is supposed to represent tradition, from my grandfather to my father to me to my boys, this passing on of this love for what we do. But what it's turned into is also the Blood Origins family. So I always have to start somewhere. Your tree has to start with someone. We call them originators. And then once we tell that story, so we've told Bert's story. Once we release Bert's story, we will ask Bert, you tell me who we film next. So we're forcing a selfless act on him, because he then finds people that will be an amazing story. He's also vetting that individual, because we need to have integrity and authenticity built into the project. That's why we don't, when someone says, tell my story, you don't have that. That's not part of what you're reaching out to me about. And so that's how it grows. And so now we're on like the third or the fourth node of this tree already. I've always had this vision that I need to find an artist. And if there's someone listening to this that is an amazing artist, reach out to me. I've got this vision of this almost, it has to be a landscape base portrait that I can manipulate, that I can change, that has 10 trees built in it, or 20 or 30 trees. And I can put the originators on the bottom of those trees, and I can add trees to it. And I can start charting the nodes that come up these trees. And then I can build cross nodes between different trees and see how things are all connected. I think that would be a super cool piece of art. But yeah, that's what we are. And it almost encapsulates the mission. The mission being showing the true heart of who we are, day in and day out.
I don't want to say anything else. That's awesome. That was my biggest takeaway from my conversation with that the three of us were having the other night was when you told me that, when we asked, how do you
find the next person?
How do you find the next person? How you showcased it, and the way you said that, man, was just like, I dig that.
So that's real.
You're not selling out. You're not, integrity. The way you said.
And we could have sold out. I could go and ask someone, hey, pay me $50,000 and we'll tell you a story.
Sure.
I know lots of those guys.
Yep.
But we didn't.
Awesome. Robbie, man, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
This was awesome.
Much appreciate you.
Appreciate your time.
All right, guys. Till next time.